high quality data in real time, and then transparency, which you touched on, and finally tying that data to how you pay your team. What's your philosophy around sharing the information with your employees? How do you think about sharing data? And then what's your philosophy on how you pay a team to incentivize behavior?
So, and this is kind of interesting. I've always felt in my heart that if people had data and they had a good understanding of it, they would do good things with it. But there was also exactly what you said. For years, we were terrified of, man, if they see these numbers, if they get an idea, like they're not going to understand, they're going to think we're getting rich. Like they don't understand reinvestment, they don't understand capital. And so we really were really closed book. So we decided to have just a accounting 101 was how we kicked it off. Like, all right, guys, let's talk about what a P&L is. Let's talk about what it looks like. And even before we do that, let's talk about cash flow, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's a difference between profit and cash flow. And so I kind of wrote an example. We did 10 million in sales, we made $1 million in profit, and now we got to pay taxes, and now we got to reinvest, and now we got to do this, and now we got to, like, at the end of the day, you're like negative 100 grand. You're like,
that's right,
guys, like you thought we were making all this money, but the reality is it actually cost us 100 grand in cash flow to operate last year.
Yeah,
and then everyone's
we're making all kinds of money. There ain't no cash left though.
Nothing left. Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. Helping them understand, that where the money goes, and that these big numbers aren't as big as they seem by the time it all gets processed. And then from there, we started the process of just kind of giving them the data and seeing what they did. But we're starting to throw this data out on a monthly basis. And then starting giving them access to do stuff and look around just kind of in the interim. They had, reports that they could run and things. And noticed that we started to get some really good feedback on some things that maybe weren't visible to us from where we were sitting. And so we expanded kind of what we were doing there. And then I guess after about 12 months of that process, then we brought in the comp piece where we said, okay, now that you guys understand the data, you've had a year to work with the data and to understand how it moves and how it affects the business. Now we're going to ask you to use that data to improve the business, and we're going to pay you to do that. So I think getting into the comp side of it, I think it's really important. And you know this, and I think a lot of people know this, is you can't have variable comp that people don't have control over. Like if you give them a variable piece and they have no real ability to affect that variable piece, you might as well give them nothing, because you're not going to motivate them. They're not going to do anything special for you. But if that comp is tied to actionable behavior, things that they can control and things that make the business better, once you get them to understand that, then the decision making gets even more focused. It gets even better, and then they reap the rewards. They almost become and I want to be careful how I say this, because nobody has an owner's mentality truly except the owners, and they shouldn't really. I mean, it's not fair to ask an employee, even if you're paying them a whole lot of money, to think like you do or to care like you do. It's just not. It's not realistic. But if you incentivize them through comp and through things like that, it gets you kind of that pseudo owner management or owner mentality, where no, they're not going to care as much as you, but they care, and and their success is tied to your success. So the moves they're making that are good for them are good for the business, and vice versa. And it creates alignment.
So what changed? What changed for the team? Did you see any different behavior when you changed that comp plan?
That's what that process of sharing the data and then incentivizing the behavior around the data was the single biggest thing we've done in the company. I mean, it was hard for me. Like, it's still hard looking back for me to understand how much of a difference that made. I mean, it literally went from, a couple of people managing every aspect of the business and making every decision, to now we've got 20 super competent people all managing the business, all taking action, again, on things that weren't even visible to me from where I'm sitting. Because I'm not, I was 2 layers removed from the front line. So I'm not seeing what those guys are seeing. And then I think that the other really important part that I think we did a nice job on is we didn't punish people for mistakes. We expected people to fall down. We expect them to stub their toe. And we really tried to create an environment around that information and the comp and everything that was a safe environment where, yeah, we know you're going to screw up. Like we all do. We're all people. But, the expectation is you learn from it. You don't make the same mistake over and over. And I think a couple of things came out of that. I think just the willingness to try something new is huge. And if people are constantly being criticized, or if they're not in an environment where they're comfortable going out on a limb and trying something new and taking ownership of it and like really driving that new process. But again, you go back to the one or two guys are making every decision and every initiative, and it just, you can't scale a business that way.